I'm back with a quick new lesson for you. And why do I have this big smile on my face? Because I'm a teacher, not a speaker. We started a brand new unit and we're learning about genetics. We're learning about how hereditary information is passed from parents down to the offspring. So we could think about our parents or maybe our grandparents and how we resemble them. We may even feel that we act like them. Now, I will say, one of my students put his hand up and say, Mr. Manning, I understand this, but this is a little bit boring. And I told him I get it. It may be a little bit boring. We may not enjoy what we're doing right now. However, there's so much that we could learn in so many ways that we could benefit about genetics. And I started to tell him about genetic disorders and traits that could be passed on. And if we know about these things ahead of time, we could prevent them. There's things that we could put in place. There's lifestyle changes that we could make in addition to other applications of genetics. So I try to give him some real life situations, and I'm gonna do the same thing for you all. So as we learned about genetics and how traits are passed from two parents into the offspring, what we learned about were something known as genotypes. So that's that genetic information, and those genotypes are typically represented by two letters of the alphabet. The capital is dominant and the lowercase is recessive. Whenever the dominant is present, it's gonna block the recessive. So I want you to keep that in mind. And we've been learning about genes and how they could be classified as Homo or hetero. These are the prefixes. And one thing that we learned about traits, they could be classified as either homozygous or heterozygous. And if we focus on the prefixes, homo and hetero, homo means the same and hetero means different. So when we apply that to our genes, we could have traits that are dominant. Brown eyes are a dominant trait. So if you have brown eyes and another parent has maybe blue eyes, your offspring is most likely to have brown eyes because that is a dominant color. And these genetic traits, as I said earlier, are represented by these genotypes, typically two letters. Now, back to homozygous and heterozygous. If I were to look at genotypes and the way they're broken down to homozygous and heterozygous, if they're homozygous, that means the letters that represent the traits are either both capitalized or both lowercase. And sometimes there's a case where you may have one capital and one lowercase. That is heterozygous. However, if that dominant trait is still present, it's gonna block the recessive trait. Now, I have to break this down and take just a little bit of time because I wanna make sure that we understand what I'm saying. I'm gonna apply this to life and then bring it back home. How you do one thing is how you do all things. I have students that may often ask, Mr. Manning, do we have to do this? Is this for a grade? Or they may feel that the grade is not a quiz or it's not a project, so they don't put forth that much effort. But I try to tell them there's so many times that small things lead to big things. If we work well with small opportunities, they can lead to big opportunities. I want us to be just like those genes that are homozygous. That means that they are either both dominant uppercase or both lowercase. If we get heterozygous, that's when we have some dominance and that recessive trait is there. Now, I will say this. Brown eyes, as I said earlier, is dominant. I could have homozygous dominant, meaning both letters are capital, which means that my traits, those brown eyes, are gonna be expressed. But heterozygous has one capital and one lowercase. What happens is that uppercase represents the brown eyes, which are dominant, but that lowercase represents another eye color. So what does that mean? Even though the dominance is on display, in the right situation, in the right environment, I can make wrong decisions. Things could not go in my favor. The intentions or the results that I want to have, they won't even exist. So I want us to think about that. Heterozygous, homozygous. Homozygous it's the same, either both capitalized or both lowercase. How we do one thing is how we do all. We want to be the same. And when I mean the same, I'm not saying that I don't want us to grow. I mean, I want us to put forth that dynamic effort in all things that we do. Not just the small things, not just the things that we show on social media, not just the things that we know other people are gonna see, or we're gonna be compensated, or we're gonna get a pat on the back. How we do one thing is how we do it all. So it does not matter what situation we're in, what environment that we're in. If we sow some small seeds, it's gonna eventually lead to us harvesting large plants, large fruit. And that's the direction that I want us to go. I want to see us excel in life. Why is that? You know why? Because I'm a teacher, not a speaker. And I want you to have an amazing day.